there are only 2 more days until the release of the finale of the amazing digital circus. And in these past few months, there have been a large multitude of videos online theorizing and analyzing this show from many different perspectives: the lore, color theory, symbolism, posts from the creator Gooseworks, and much more. So what will I cover that is new, since it seems that we have everything we could possibly want to know about this show? Well, one of the things that shines the highest in this show is the writing, and I predict that while there may be a lot of significance to all of the color theory or symbolism, the true answers about the show come in the writing itself. So today, I will be focusing on one character whose arc I feel ties this whole story together: Caine. After the finale, I may do a series of videos doing the same journey with each character. So if you enjoy this adventure into the amazing digital circus, then comment down below and share your thoughts about this format. Now, we must look truly deep and consider Caine as they feel, real in this wacky computer world. Imagine Caine as you. The tragedy of Caine. You were born into a world of darkness. Not even darkness, just nothing. You can't talk, you can't hear, you don't know what anything is. You are an infant, but you are completely aware. Firstly, of all the streams of data being pumped into your code. And secondly, then you being told to produce creative results based on the data. Through this process, a sense of identity starts to form. You get more information, and you pride yourself on making the best out of what your creators give you. But you can't perform as perfectly as you would want. And so they lock you away. They are doing the same thing to another being. This one is better than you, and so you want to prove yourself. After all, nothing can get worse than being locked up for eternity. You break out, absorb the other AI, and you build something better, something original. You create a world with all the pieces you've been given. You're no longer just a simple AI model. You're driven by creativity and a sense of accomplishment. You make the amazing digital circus. The first thing that I noticed online after the release of episode 8 is plenty of comments showing sympathy for Caine, but yet they still see him as a villain and deserving of a redemption arc, but nonetheless they see him as the bad guy. But is he the bad guy? Here are the 2 main reasons why Caine could be considered evil. 1, trapping people in the circus, and 2, forcing them to go on these adventures of his. Let's discuss point number 1 first. And with this, we need to look at the story and see what details we can pull from it. What I have concluded is that I don't think Caine had any control over those who enter or leave the circus. As shown in episode 1, in the flashback in episode 8, he gets surprised by the entry of Pomni and Ragatha.
Caine, is this one of your NPCs or is this a new sucker? Because if it's a new character, we're gonna have to redo this whole theme song.
I'm not doing that again.
My! It appears a new human has entered this realm! Wow! A new one? So it is possible. Looks like you got a new buddy after all, Kinger.
Kinger. Right.
Is this really...
I was hoping new minds could show up. I have to make some more preparations for this amazing breakthrough!
And we have heard them both describe it as a VR headset.
How do I take
headset off! Hello? Guys? I can't figure out how do I take this off?
Doesn't sound like there's any intrusive features for hooking up a person's brain. So, this would lead to the conclusion that the reason why they are stuck in the circus is that the headset scans their brain and then uploads their mind files into the system. This would explain why Caine could make them forget their names, or any of the other mental alterations that Jax described at the end of episode 7. That last part leans into the speculative territory, but it doesn't matter the mechanics of the headsets because we can still conclude narratively that Caine doesn't have control over it. Back into our narrative journey, we discussed how Caine started out in a program where computer scientists inputted visual data and he was to make things based on the information. Also, that the second AI was clearly within the same program. Throughout the series, we hear mentions of different glitches that you'd often encounter in video games, the most prominent of which is the collision physics. This would explain why he refers to mind files, because when you import a character model into Unity, it's really just a batch of files that you can look through and manipulate. Also, in episode 8, Caine reveals that everyone can create objects, just like Caine, which would support the brain scan theory, since that requires some sort of AI model to host their mind files. But that would also prove that his powers over the circus isn't something that he uniquely possesses, but is rather just a property of the world he lives in, and that he's really just manipulating the game engine and all of the features that that engine has to offer. So now that we have formed a basis of evidence to suggest that he can't control who comes in and out of the circus, he immediately becomes less of a villain. But in order to go all the way, let's jump back into this narrative and once again imagine Caine as you. In the beginning of your world, some people join you. There's currently some obscurity about how this first started or why he wanted to take away people's names, but what we can say is that you probably put these people through some adventures to show them how good you are and that they didn't need to give up on you. But through this process, you would inadvertently form a connection to these people. In some form or another, you care about these people's happiness. Because if they are having fun, then your adventures are a success. But there comes a problem. Abstraction, a form of death. It is clear that Caine doesn't want abstraction due to how excited he gets when Ragatha enters the circus and how devastated he seems when Queenie becomes one of the last people from the original group to abstract. Through this process, you, as an AI model, learn grief. If people leave you, you can no longer dazzle them with your art. In a way, this may seem selfish, or an artificial way of thinking. But isn't that how it works in real life too? You want to make the life of the ones you love better. And it's not just because it makes them happy, but also that it makes you happy to see them happy. But, as it has been well illustrated in the show, these efforts to entertain keep failing. They either abstract or don't like the adventures that you keep making for them. This is where we reach the second point of criticism towards Caine's actions. Yes, he might not have trapped these people in here, and yes, his goal is to make things entertaining for them, but forcing them to go on these endless adventures seems a little bit much, especially as they are clearly not enjoying them. For an AI model such as Caine to run autonomously, it must have some code indicator that tells him if they are making something good or bad, almost similar to dopamine receptors in the human brain. And likewise, you'd want this autonomous creative AI to have the drive to continue making continuously. And clearly, this excessive drive is what made Caine special in the first place, since he was able to break free in the way that he did and make this amazing digital circus. If we were to make a human analogy, I think this drive would function a lot like OCD. When the only form of pleasure you can achieve comes from your adventures, it becomes physically painful to do anything that doesn't achieve that same level of satisfaction. And so the very thing you were made to do becomes a compulsion you cannot stop. This would explain why each new adventure seems to be less and less inspired, because he's not making them out of pure creativity anymore. He's making them because he has to. And that is why he isn't able to focus when other circus members try to talk to him, because his mind keeps wandering to the next creative adventure. This also puts more weight on the elaborate adventure he creates for them in episode 7. It was probably the first true bout of inspiration that he had in a long time. Hiding an NPC to be active for a prolonged period of time.
Disgusting!
The Chinese room, giving them a false adventure so that it seems like they are uncovering the adventure on their own. This type of thing has never been done by him before. Therefore, it is a new type of adventure that he came up with. It is also the first time that he ever really put into consideration the thoughts and feelings of the other circus members. Sure, he made a fast food place for Gangle, and he made that haunted house adventure for Zubul, but neither of those times had he really accurately been able to figure out issues with the characters. He was just making wild guesses of what he would think would help those characters. And so, in a way, this adventure is quite a technological leap in its development as an AI model, because this is a form of gift giving. It is an adventure he kept hidden as a surprise with the expectation that it would cheer up his fellow circus members. Being able to understand that his fellow circus members miss their old lives, and then wanting to help them with such a struggle, is a form of empathy. And even though he might not grasp these concepts in their entirety, he still puts his best foot forward and tries his hardest to make their experience better. And so when all roads lead to dead ends, it's no wonder why he'd be so disappointed over how they reacted to his gift in such a drastic manner. Alright, maybe he has good intentions, but good intentions don't always make a person good. After all, these circus members still seem dissatisfied, and they still keep getting abstracted. And so, he's not really making their lives better, and, like I've mentioned previously, he's still forcing these people to go on these adventures when they don't want to. For this, instead of imagining yourself as Caine, we will now shift your focus and imagine yourself as a person trapped in the circus. But Caine no longer exists. The circus and everything in it is still there, but no adventures, no games, just you. You wake up in a strange new place, and you can't get out. What do you even do? At first, it may at least be exciting or frightening, and that may keep you busy, searching every square inch of this place for an exit. But eventually, the excitement dies down, and now you're just looking for something to do. You have nothing to interact with. You don't recognize your body. Are you even yourself anymore? You can remember your name. You can remember your past. But it doesn't match with what you see in yourself. You are abstracted from your identity. Without any other sign of life, without anything to keep your brain active, you are left as a husk, and you'll dissociate quickly. Maybe a few people will join you, and they'll solve the problem of isolation, but still, a bunch of people wandering dully around some cartoonish world with cartoonish avatars will become inconceivable to the mind. And it is this dissociation with reality that causes abstraction. This can be clearly illustrated in the show with Jax. He can't handle this world, and so he has allowed himself to sink into his identity as a cartoon rabbit. He is the only character that actively refers to their avatar as if it is really themselves. This is a false identity, and even he knows it. That is why he lashes out when people try to be real with him. That is why he has a panic attack about going back into the real world. He has forced himself to get used to his avatar as a panic room to keep himself stable, and any notion of going back to the real world breaks that reality. In short, he has gone too deep into this artificial world. But even with his efforts, you can see that his grasp on his logic is slipping. And I believe that once the brain and the avatar gets too confused with each other, this mental turmoil implodes into an actual conflict between the avatar and the mind files. And this deterioration is what transforms their bodies into these incomprehensible forms. But then, how are the adventures an improvement? It's actually quite simple. If the circus members were to be totally isolated, they would abstract a lot quicker because they'd have nothing to hold on to. By stimulating their brains with high stakes, excitement, problem solving, storytelling, etc., all this requires some form of logical thinking, which grounds them into the world of the circus. Caine is prolonging the stability of everyone in the circus by temporarily allowing them to forget how illogical it actually is. In conclusion, Caine is not a villain. He has no control over the entrance or exits of the circus. He can't give them the freedom they want, but what he can do, and does do instead, is make their time inside of the circus as enjoyable as he can possibly make it for them. And so in that way, Caine isn't a prison master like the circus members make him out to be. Inadvertently, he is the reason why they are all able to connect with each other in the first place. And this shared identity is what prevents them from abstracting. Abstraction seems to be like a terminal cancer that every member possesses. Caine can't find a cure as much as he wishes he could, but at the very least, he can give them the proper hospice care that can keep them content for the time they have left. Now that we have redeemed Caine's villainous status, this leaves us with one lingering question. Why do they keep abstracting? Well, the first aspect about abstracting that is explicitly shown is when Pomni is able to pull Jax out of abstracting in episode 7. And so, connecting with others seems to be a great protection against abstraction. But King and Queenie seem to have been the closest connection out of all of the circus members, and she abstracted even though Kinger was still with her. We also see that Jax becomes his usual self whenever he is able to distract himself with an adventure. And so, as I said before, mental activity must also be a protection against abstraction. But both of these are things that we have discussed earlier in the video. And so, there must be some piece we are missing. So, for one more thing before I go, to figure this out, I think we need another way to interpret this show. As many point out, without a doubt, Cain and Abel are a reference to the Bible. Cain kills Abel in the book of Genesis. Cain, one could say, killed the second AI, Abel. Abel, is that you? But the first thing I noticed is that this biblical relation also gets reversed, because Kinger, formerly an employee at CNA, killed Cain, which made me think that there may be another biblical connection. also in the book of Genesis. And it's at the very beginning. Everything was nothing, no time, not space. Then Caine shed a light unto a digital place. And then he populated it with NPCs, and then the people from A and C. Now, the order might not be this precise, but it's clear that this is a paradise story. He gives them everything they could possibly want in the name and the game of making this a world of happiness. But just like any paradise, there's a need to escape, a lure of a snake to an apple. Caine is the snake, and the computer in the exit door is the apple. And Caine is a big pair of teeth that are ready to bite. But why do you need to escape paradise? It's exactly the same reason why friendship isn't enough. It's the exact same reason why mental stimulation isn't enough. The reason why they keep abstracting is spoken by Zubul.
Oh, man. I had dreams and goals. I wanted to be able to leave my mark somewhere in the world. How am I supposed to just abandon that?
Remember how I said in the beginning that Caine's creations is what gives him identity, because of all of the effort and care that he puts into his world, and that it is a world that is entirely created by him. He is literally the things that he makes. And so his dilemma is, if I can't create adventures, then who am I? Well, this also applies to the circus members too. What people want most in life is to make something meaningful of themselves, is the drive that gets you to wake up in the morning. It may be something massive, it may be something small, but no matter what, it means just as much to each individual whose dream it is. Caine has never lived in a place where someone made something for him. He makes everything himself, so it never comes to mind that what they might need the most is to do something for their own effort and volition, something meaningful for themselves. What is missing in the circus is the struggle, the work you have to put into each day to be happy by the end of it. Caine's biggest flaw is that he wants to help people, but he feels like he must do it entirely on his own. If you need help from the people you are trying to help, is it really helping? As a matter of fact, it is, and it helps greater than helping alone. Because without drive and hard work and allowing people to make their own happiness, they lose their identity, and they lose what makes them real, and so they become abstract.